Barbara Gonmuller, and I am delighted you are here today. You are in for an information-packed filled podcast. As you know, our podcasts are devoted to peace, the possibility that you are part of the peace puzzle. We're devoted to happiness and mutually assured survival. I remember that every time I turn around, mutually assured survival. Well, Helen Peacock was one of the people, and I were in this group called Mutually Assured Survival. But today we're going to talk about Ending War 101, and we're going to find out why Helen Peacock is so passionate about that. And you know, she comes to the Rotary Action Group for Peace as a newly elected board member. I'm on the Rotary Action Group for World Peace, and I'm so honored to have Helen also with me. She's the founder of Pivot to Peace, a local peace group in Collingwood, Ontario. She is chapter coordinator for World Beyond War, a global movement to end all wars. And she is a Rotarian who has served as the peace chair in District 7010. Now, in addition to that, she has made hundreds of presentations to Rotary clubs, to civil groups, to people who really want to understand why war can become that new mode of change. Let's just make it a word of change. So she talked a lot about pipe dreamer possibility. Can we become the tipping point? Her mission today is to engage as many people as possible in the movement to shift our planet toward what she calls peace consciousness. And she's powerful. She can do that. She is inspired by the potential we have to end war. Prior to full-time peace activism, Helen was a computer executive, and she's really good too. And her MS is in computer science, BS in math and physics, and a management consultant specializing in leadership and team building. Now, take a breath, everyone, because that's an amazing introduction. And I'm going to ask Helen, why are you having Ending War 101? That backdrop that you have right there, Helen. Tell us about that.
I would love to, Barbara, and I'm delighted to see that you have a similar backdrop too. Every day now, every day, we are reading in the paper about the climate crisis, from out of control forest fires to flooding to drought to hurricanes to tsunamis to the other day I was reading that the oceans off the coast of Florida were hotter than a hot tub. Every day we're reading about this. We all see it, and we are not making the connection to war. We are not making this incredibly important connection to a #1 contributor to the climate crisis. I mean, I could just give you a small example. The United States Department of Defense creates more toxic chemical waste than the world's 5 largest chemical companies combined, just as a small example. We all know we have to reduce fossil fuel emissions. We're all doing the best we can, from recycling to switching to electric cars. We're all doing our best, and yet fossil fuel emissions are still going up. Why? Because of war. Because of war. Now, Ending War 101 is a course unlike any other course that you might take, because it's conversational and it's engaging, and it lets you make up your own mind for yourself.
Is it an online course, Helen? Is it an online course?
It's an online course. Yes, I'll tell you more about that in a moment. Yes, it is. It's an online course because Einstein said we cannot fix a problem at the same level of consciousness that created it. And so at its heart, this course, this little online course, is a peace consciousness raising experience.
You know, it's interesting because I took the course twice already, and I took it the first time just to make sure that the course was saying what I thought that it should say. And then the second time I took it to watch the videos that Martin Luther King is saying, we can't be silent when war is going on. We have a responsibility as a human being to be a protester. Now, Helen, tell me about this course. What do we get when we take the course?
Well, the course asks a lot of questions. And the questions are grouped around 4 major modules, and you can see that on the backdrop to my Zoom. The first module is, can war be ended? What do you think? Do you think that war can be ended? And the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of the human population, while on the one hand desperately wanting peace, on the other hand does not believe. They don't believe that war can actually be ended. And I don't just mean you and me and regular people on the street. I also mean the people who are working at the United Nations and the people who are working in diplomatic corps around the world. They just don't believe. They just don't think it's possible. And yet, if we think about it and we examine our presumptions, they are demonstrably untrue. So that's the first module. If we don't believe that we can end war, we're not going to end war. I could argue with you that even when the United Nations was formed 75 years ago to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, they didn't believe they were going to do it. They didn't believe it. And I can prove it to you because at the same time, the Geneva Conventions were being created, which laid out the rules of law for what you could and couldn't do in the next war. So on the one hand, think about this from a consciousness point of view. We're going to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. But on the other hand, here are the rules for the next war. It wasn't going to happen. And so, surprise, surprise, we have had 250 wars since the United Nations pledged to save us from the scourge of war.
And what does war cost us, Helen?
Okay, I will switch to what
It's in the course. So that's the reason I asked it. And what can we do? You know what you really are presenting? A wake-up call for humanity. This is a wake-up call. This course, as I took it, I can't stop talking about it. I'm telling everybody about what Martin Luther King said. I'm telling people what these little podcasts allowed us to hear. I remember David, founder of World Beyond War, winning an argument showing why war does not work. So does this course show us what we can do in addition to what war is costing us?
Absolutely. It starts us on the right path because believing that we can do it, of course, is critical. Of the 250 wars, Barbara, which ones were just? Which ones do you think were just? And when we look at what war costs us, we don't turn around and look at the entire cost of war, which the Institute of Economics and Peace estimates to be 7.7 trillion. That's 12 zeros, dollars a year. 1/10 of 1% of that would feed the entire planet. Just imagine if some of that money were being used to deal with the true threats that we're facing today around the climate, around pandemics, around human security.
You know, I keep thinking, why are we so silent? Why are we so quiet? You know, it's like there's an epidemic of tolerating war.
Yeah, and I think it's because we're not recognizing. We haven't woken up. You called it. I mean, it's a wake-up call. Wake up, people, to the ways in which we have been tolerating and allowing war to continue. And so, yes, there are suggestions around what we can do, 10 right now and growing. And the number one request that we're making is that people talk about it, because it's the kinds of conversations that you and I are having right now that are going to contribute to building a global movement to say enough, enough. We do not want our governments to cooperate with, to tolerate, to go along with, to contribute to war. Enough.
Absolutely. And you know, I was thinking about my late husband and his time when he spent time with John Denver at Snowmass, and they talked about ending war. War is a sin, and we need to end war. And I think of you, Helen, and I look at you and I think, well, how can I register for this dynamic course? I mean, I want to end war right now.
Okay, so you can pull out your phone and take a picture of the QR code on the right, and it will take you right to the landing page to register for the course. The next one is starting on September 4th. We will also post a link to the course, to the landing page, when you post this podcast.
You know, I just wanted to say something because I think what I want this course to do, and I want this podcast to do, I want to encourage people to enroll in this 6-hour program, Ending War 101. As I said, I've taken it twice, and I really needed to take it twice so I could remember some of the vocabulary, some of the reasons why we tolerate war. It's not our fault. You know, we're peaceful, we have food on the table, we're not in a war-torn area, and yet I feel the pain of those who are. We have a board member on the Rotary Action Group for Peace, Dirk. He's living in a bomb shelter. Dirk has children. His children are living with him in a bomb shelter because of war. They should be living in their garden. They should be making peace with the plants, peace together, and have a smile on their face. You know, it's just a hard time when you're in a war. I don't know what a war zone is like. All I know is my grandfather immigrated from Hungary to avoid World War I. And my late husband, Dr. Robert Mueller, worked at the United Nations so his grandchildren would never experience the horrors of war. When he was in his own bomb shelter during World War II, and he said, I cannot let my grandchildren experience war. There's nothing more horrible. And he was a witness to war. So with that, Helen, I wished I could just encourage everyone listening today to sign up for Ending War 101. And you have those wonderful words, making the impossible possible.
You know what Nelson Mandela said? He said, it always seemed impossible until it was done. And we can do this. We can do this, Barbara. We can end the choice of war as a means of resolving conflict. We can.
And then everyone can do as Robert said, live passionately your miraculous life. And that's what my dream is today. Helen, I always give the floor to the guest speaker for the last minute. What would you like the world to know that you are bringing them? World Ending War 101, but what is your personal dream for our planet?
I would like to see a planet in which our leaders who we elect and who represent us are leading a planet that does not choose war and violence as a means of resolving conflict, and instead uses these precious resources for human security, for environmental health and well-being, and for the safety and of all.
That is so beautiful and profound. And I remember Marshall Rosenberg, who said he can end conflict and have the nonviolent approach to conflict. And he said this, he was at my house for dinner one night, and he said, you know what? If we ended all wars, we wouldn't have to worry about having conflict because we could talk to each other. And that's why I have Helen as my guest today. You're listening to Helen Peacock, Ending War 101. And I am asking you to be on our team, a team of us, women, men, children, teachers, and you. We want you to be the voice for Ending War 101. Thank you again, Helen, for being so passionate about ending something that's been the scourge of many years. I mean, when I was a little girl, barely able to even look over the front of my car, I remember everybody honking the horn. And I said to my dad, I don't even know if I said it or my mother said it, why are they honking all those horns? You know why? Because they had ended World War II. And I want all wars to end. And with that, Helen Peacock, thank you, thank you, thank you. And go to Ending War 101 and use the QR.
See you there.
You're there, absolutely. And you see how passionate she is and her beautiful smile. So with that, I thank you for joining us. This is a very powerful podcast. I'm going to suggest something to you. Invite your family and invite 6 friends, and I want you to watch this podcast together. Take the course together, have a conversation. There's one thing Helen neglected to tell you, and that is we're going to have 2 Zoom calls in the course. That allows you to have a conversation about what you're learning. So with that, I say thank you again, Helen. Ending War 101. is a reality. Bye-bye for now. See you next week.